My assumption, going into the digital era was that the more people who could publish and the fact you could have reputation systems about what was reliable would mean that we'd have more voices out there and we would become more knowledgeable and society would benefit from that depth of understanding. What we're seeing now, which is an offset to that benefit, of people clustering in communities where they're listening to things that are attacks on the people they don't like, even if they're true or not. I hope that people's desire is to know the truth and to share ideas with other people. But it certainly is being questioned whether it's working that way or not. And a lot of debate about, well, then what's the responsibility of the network to expose people to different points of view or filter out things that are wrong? And it's a tough thing to be put in that position. What is hate speech? What is so anti-scientific that it shouldn't be out there? So the digital era, it's new and it is a bit concerning.
Essentially what Bill Gates is talking about. YouTube, which is owned by Google, which is a parent company called Alphabet. I think about that every time I do one of these videos. They put out this document in February, so just last month, called How Google Fights Disinformation. And they specifically mention that disinformation means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So right away, not everyone is going to even agree on what that means. But they go on to say it's to purposefully disseminate information that you know to be inaccurate with the hope that others believe it's true or to create discord in society. Well, because what's accurate, according to Google, are sources like Wikipedia and authoritative sources such as mainstream media outlets. And this has been pointed out. It's a really good point that there's no way for these companies to make algorithms that are sophisticated enough to be able to tell the difference between quote-unquote blatantly false, misleading information and a conspiracy theory that might turn out to be totally true. There are lots of examples, and this guy makes the point that this would be the same as if you had, back during the Watergate days, prior to that coming out, if all the newspapers got together and said, we're banning all stories on this topic. We're just not even going to allow anyone to talk about it at all. Even though that's totally something that turned out to be true, there's lots of things that turn out to be true. There's no possible way, with how many posts are being made to these social media outlets in just the span of a single minute, you're talking about millions of posts. There's no way for them to do that in a way that they can do that with human beings. That is something that only computer algorithms are handling. And so they're just blanket banning things because there's no way to do this any other way. And there's no way for them to make a sophisticated enough algorithm that can really truly tell the difference. This is just a way to blanket ban things and take them out of public discussion, out of public debate, out of public view, and out of public thought.
Google and YouTube admit that they're not just following their own community guidelines. Sure, they set up rules and they said everyone has to follow the rules and they could ban you if you break the rules, but they admit what they're doing right now, and Facebook and other social media platforms are doing it too, is they're targeting content that admittedly doesn't break community guidelines, but it comes close to it. It's approaching the boundaries, right? In other words, stuff that doesn't break the rules, they're now targeting. And in this document, How Google Fights Disinformation, they admit straightforwardly that after the community guidelines, they have a secondary set of rules that are internal, that are not disclosed to the public, in which they use to basically demote content, censor and remove content, and bury it inside their algorithm. So they claim they're going to keep content on the platform unless it violates their community guidelines. But they say right here, YouTube maintains a more detailed and living set, in other words, constantly changing, set of enforcement guidelines that provide internal guidance on the enforcement of public community guidelines. These are extensive and dynamic to assure that policies apply to changing trends and new patterns of controversial content online. Well, controversy is synonymous with having a point of view, with dissenting against whatever might be dominant at the time. It's just part of any democratic society, any society with free speech and the right to free views at all. But they admit that they have internal guidelines to help them rein in controversial content, and that these are evolving, and that, quote, YouTube does not typically disclose these updates to the public because doing so would make it easier for unscrupulous users to evade detection. So in other words, everyone else has no idea what could get them banned or demoted tomorrow. No one knows what rules to play by, and Google all but admits it in their policy document.